Ever notice how the post is basically done, but somehow your content doesn't publish? That last 10% is where small teams lose momentum. Endless tweaks, one more review, waiting on someone to approve it. If you're a nonprofit, maybe it's a board member, waiting for someone to have the time to fix it. Well, here's the hard truth. Most small teams don't have a content problem. They have a shipping problem. Today, I'm joined by Robin Emdon, creator of Resultsology, to break down what actually happens when small teams procrastinate and how to replace the chaos with a simple system that compounds. Clear ownership, a real definition of done, and lightweight accountability that doesn't add more meetings, because who wants more meetings? If your content is stuck in draft mode, this is your reset, so you can ship consistently and get results. This is Strategy Talks. I'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Dorien Morin-van Dam.
Hello, everybody. I'm back with another episode of Strategy Talks. You're here. This is fantastic. If you're here live right now, today, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Yes, we're going live on 3 different platforms. Let us know in the comments where you're joining us from, and be sure to ask questions because we will answer them if we see them pop up on the screen. I'm very excited that you're here, but before we get started and I bring my friend onto the stage with me, I want to welcome those of you who listen to Strategy Talks as a podcast. We appreciate your loyal listening hours, and we appreciate you being here today listening to this episode. So without much further ado, I'm going to bring onto the stage today's guest, Robin Emdon. How are you today, Robin?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your show today and meeting with your tribe, as I like to call people. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you on. You and I met a couple of weeks ago. You reached out to me and said, "Hey, you want to be on my podcast because you have a podcast?" And I said yes, and we had such a great time. So you're now here talking about getting results, which is ultimately what we all want. If you're in marketing and you're listening, you're watching this, you want content out on social media, on emails, on a blog, and we get stuck all the time. So you wrote this book and you figured out how to move people through to actually get results, right? I mean, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's called GetResultsology, and it's all about, as you say, getting the results that you most desire, not just any old results. Tidying the garage is a result, but that's hardly going to move you to your passion project goal of, I don't know, writing a book, is it? So, and I added the tacked on the word ology because there is method in my madness, and it's also based on real science, not my science, but hundreds, thousands of research projects have been done into getting results. And I thought, well, my skill, obviously you can hear I'm British English, I'm English, and my skill set is to translate the science into English because science isn't really awesome. My thing.
I love it. So when a small team says we're stuck, what's actually happening behaviorally and neurologically? Is it fear, ambiguity, perfectionism, lack of clarity? What are some of the patterns that you see when somebody tells you we're stuck?
Well, it's all of the above and other things that we haven't mentioned. I mean, the way I tackle it in the book, I actually wrote the book for myself. It was a selfish project. I self-identified myself as a procrastinator. I'm very ashamed to say that. I trained in 2001 under Tony Robbins' tutelage to be a life coach. And there I was in 2019, realizing I'd taken 10 years to do a 6-year degree. And I thought, oh yeah, that was procrastination, facepalm moment, and ashamed of myself. I thought, I really need to get a handle on this because that's unacceptable, the cost of it and all of that and everything. So I wrote the book for myself. But I realized that once I started looking at the research, there was a mountain of material out there. And one of the things that they identified was, one of the things that the research identified, of course, is the obvious. No two people are the same. We're all different. So from our perspective, I mean, one of the things I'd look at with a team is who are the tortoises and who are the hares. So a way of looking at that is, when I'm referring to Aesop's fable, the tortoise and the hare, and I don't mean it in the literal sense, I mean it in the metaphorical sense. So a tortoise, for example, they tend to overthink everything. They want to take their time. They fear imperfection. They've got to get it right. So they just, if I may mix my creatures, they're like the proverbial rabbit caught in the car headlamps. They just, I don't want to move in case I'd move in the wrong direction. And they struggle with deadlines because of all of these underlying things going on. And then you've got the hares, and they may very well be in the same team. And the hares, they lose interest really quickly. They find the tortoises insanely boring, not as people, but their work ethic. They're like, come on, let's just get on with it. Let's just do it. I don't care about why it works. I just want it to work. I just want to do it. They're easily distracted. They're always like, from the Pixar movie with the Doug the dog, squirrel. They're always off doing something else because they're dopamine junkies. They want the next fix. They want something else. They're not junkies in the wrong sense of the word. They just always want something to keep them moving forward, and they need that external motivation, which a tortoise generally doesn't. A tortoise, in the real world, in the bigger world, the tortoises are generally your Nobel Prize winners for physics and chemistry and medicine. They don't mind if it takes them a lifetime to achieve a result, whereas a hare's like, a lifetime? No, I want it done by lunchtime. Come on, let's get on with it. So you've got those internal conflicts going on. So the first thing I would say is, in your team, is identify who the tortoises are and who the hares are, because both of them bring strengths to the table, absolutely vital parts of your team, but they have different ways of working, and you have to think about that.
Oh, that's great. So if we're talking about a content team, there's somebody who's like, I have an idea. Here is how I implement it. Can I post it today? And then this is, content if you're a marketer. Whereas the tortoises are, let's schedule this out, 4 weeks out. Let's do let's test this. Let's do this. Let's get some other eyes on it. Let's run with the idea. Let's make it the best possible idea, and then put it out 4 weeks later. So those are different ways of thinking about, especially content in marketing. And from my perspective, you need both. As a good content team needs to be able to get an idea, get, right off right away, get that enthusiasm, put it out today, test it, whether it fails or it works really well, you get data, right? Failing is data. And then you also need the steady content, the steady work of the tortoise of, a blog post a week, a newsletter, all the other pieces of content that need to continuously be created and go out. So I love that answer. Now, Robin, if you could install one repeatable process in a small team to reduce procrastination immediately, what would that be?
Immediately, team up with someone in the team, create an accountability buddy.
Okay.
My book is 9 chapters.
Okay.
And 8.5 chapters of the content of my book are all about self-empowerment, mastering your own internal strategies that you need to learn to do that work well to get you motivated to get moving. But half a chapter, or maybe a little bit more, as it's spread through the book, is the science kept pointing at external accountability. You don't want to let other people down, people that you respect, colleagues, people that you know, like, and trust. You don't want to let them down. It's an empathy thing. And external accountability is huge. If you say to yourself, yeah, I need to get this done by Friday, and the reason you need to get it done by Friday is because, well, I just set an artificial deadline. Actually, I don't need to do it until the end of the month, but I'll probably do it by Friday. Friday evening, you haven't done anything. You're panicking. You're like, oh my God, I was going to do it never mind, I'll do it next week. But if you tell your buddy, your friend, I will have this done to this limit, these number of words, this outcome achieved by Friday. Well, you might still get a little bit closer to the Friday than you're comfortable with before you do anything, but then it's like, oh no, I don't want to let them down. That would be awful. And of course, you do the same for them.
Yeah.
So it's reciprocal.
Yeah, I love that. I'm in a couple of masterminds with other marketers. And one of my masterminds, we have that accountability piece. And we all own our own business. And it's really lovely because when we meet, we talk about like, what are you going to accomplish this week? Let's check in on Friday and see how far you've taken it and if you're okay. So, and if you've done it, and that definitely helps. And I remember when I was on your show, Robin, we talked about agility in marketing. I'm an agile marketer, and one of the things that I love, the accountability to myself, and I love having an accountability partner, but accountability to myself starts with having a starting line and a finish line, not just saying I'm going to do this on Friday, but today is Monday. Well, today's Tuesday, but today is Monday. What can I do today to make sure that I'm done on Friday? And that accountability piece to myself. So that's that self-starter piece that you were talking about.
Yeah,
earlier.
that works unless you're me.
Yeah.
Because I recognize that. I was talking to a friend of mine when I was writing the book, and she said, "Oh, what are you doing now?" And I told her I was writing a book about procrastination, and she said, and getting more productive. She said, "Oh, do people really do that?" And I said, "Yeah, I know. You never procrastinate. You're a workaholic. Nothing gets procrastinated in your world." No, she said, "I don't really understand it." So I leaned in and I said, "Oh, tell me more. I'm really interested to hear your mindset." And she came out with what I expected. She came out with the comment you've just made. Basically, you're talking about internal accountability.
Yeah.
And for some people, that works really well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're me, it doesn't. And by the way, when I talk about me, I'm not being immodest. I'm joined by the statistics show that something like 95% of people will, if they own up to it, will say that they procrastinate sometimes. No big deal. We all procrastinate over little things all the time. But of those, 1 in 5, 20% of them struggle with what I struggle with, chronic procrastination, where it's a real daily battle. So if my internal accountability buddy says, right, okay, I can't have this treat, whatever it is, until I've done an hour's work on that, or I've got so many words written on my content. My friend, that works perfectly. Me, it's like, oh, I'm a rebel. I'll have the treat now. Thank you very much. No one's going to tell me what to do. I will have that now. Right? I can't resist. I realize I've done that all my life with everything. In every aspect of my life, I've always been a little bit of a rebel. I'm not rebellious in the illegal sense, but I'm a little bit of a rebel. And when somebody says I can't have something, I want it now, and I'll take it if I can get it. So yeah, it works for some, but not for others. Tortoises and hares. Some people are tortoises, some people are hares. Some people will sit in a room and shout fire, and that'll be the hare running for the door, and the tortoise will be saying, "Oh, hang on a minute. Which do you think is the best door we should run for?" We're all different.
Yeah, that is, you are right. So that internal accountability, and if you don't have that innate internal responsibility, and I see that as a business owner, I have to have it because I'm the only one that I'm accountable for as a team of one. But when I work with other people and other teams, then I have that external accountability because I have to deliver content to a client or to the agency. So that makes sense. But there are people who don't have that internal. They're better off working in-house, working for a boss where that accountability is there to or someone else, and not absolutely on their own. And I totally get that. So if you're a marketer and you're listening, if you have your own business, you might have that internal accountability. And if you're struggling and you don't have that, then something like an accountability partner, another business owner, a mastermind might be exactly what you need to have that accountability. If you work in-house and your team, you feel like it's not working, maybe you have too many hares or too many tortoises on the team, right? So it's great. I love this answer. So now when we talk about team-based procrastination loops, it just keeps going and going. Is it, and I know, Robin, you're not necessarily a content marketer. So I'm asking you something that you might have an answer for, but maybe you don't. would it be like review cycles that you think people are stuck, or not making decisions, or maybe, seeing like the hair, like, oh, there's a shiny tool, let me go try this tool? What are some of the most basic procrastination things that you see that could happen when we're talking about, content?
Okay, so I'm going to slightly shift my answer to that question and say, look, if I hold up this hand here and I wave it at the camera for people that can see this, then they're not paying attention to this hand over here. If you're just looking at one hand and you're not paying attention to the other hand. So we could focus on this hand being, let's just look at the question. But on this hand, actually, I've got some answers for you. And so what I wanted to mention to you is, like, you were talking about procrastination. That's this hand. I don't care about procrastination. What I care about is mastering being more productive. What I care about is fulfilling my passion projects that have been stalled for months and years. What I care about is achieving the kind of results that I want in my life and moving towards my personal life vision. I don't care about this nonsense, procrastination. Procrastination, be gone, be damned. I don't care about it. But if I focus on it, I'll just do it more. So when talking in terms of both teamwork and as a solopreneur myself, it's not the procrastination that's actually holding you up. That is a manifestation of something much bigger, and I go into that in a lot of detail in my book. What you're probably lacking is not enough structure in your working day. You're not clear about the next step or steps that you have to take. These are things that must come up again and again and again in your strategy talks. And you're missing a feedback loop, the accountability buddy, who can look at what you're doing and saying, okay, that's great. Now what's the next step? What do we got? You got that done by Thursday, not Friday. So what can we do on Friday? So you need to shift the question from what's wrong to what's missing in the system. And the answers will always be, there'll be something about structure. There'll be something about not having a clear enough defined next step or your clear outcome. And I talk about micro deadlines in the book. So the micro deadline is a micro outcome and your ultimate outcome. How does this help us achieve our ultimate outcome is always a question that I have at the forefront of my mind. So, if even to the point like washing the dishes after dinner, it's like, oh, I don't care about that. I can procrastinate about that. That's not a problem. Why would I care about that? What's my ultimate outcome? My ultimate outcome is I want to study for my university degree, and the dishes are on the table where I lay out my study materials. Right, now the dishes get washed because I've went back to my ultimate outcome. That's a silly metaphor, but No.
I was saying, as you're saying about the kitchen, I'm like, I want my kitchen clean because tomorrow morning when I wake up, I want to be able to cook breakfast and not have dishes in the sink. So, everybody's got their own thing. But I
go further and say, if you don't have breakfast, that doesn't set you up for the day, which means you can't work very well because you're distracted by being hungry, which means your ultimate outcome of achieving your business goals is going to suffer. And when you link the two, however ridiculous that might sound in terms of, really, what's having breakfast got to do with me becoming an oncologist?
Right.
Everything.
Right. It's habits. It's good habit. Well, you set me up exactly for the next question that I had, right? So how do you help someone or teams decide what done means? Because you literally talked about this, because a lot of procrastination is really the finish line keeps moving. What's your definition of done method? How does somebody know it's done? Is that because they can move on? Or is that looking at the big picture? Because that is really what we want, right? We want.
Right. Well, if you look at the big picture, you're gonna struggle with overwhelm, and overwhelm is a procrastinator feeder, right?
Yeah.
So you need that big picture in your mind. Put it on a sticky note somewhere. Put it on a poster. Paint the wall with the words of your ultimate outcome. That's fine. It's got to be there somewhere. Like a rainbow coming into the room as a constant beam of light saying, here I am, and the gold is at the end of the rainbow. But in the book, I talk about island hopping. And island hopping, back in the legend is that the Polynesians who live on around nearly 1,000 islands in the Pacific Ocean, how did they originally populate those islands? And the answer is one at a time. And it probably took them centuries. No one, of course, remembers, but it must have done. They didn't have GPS. They didn't have satellites. They didn't have big motor engines. They had to canoe their way everywhere. And they did it by hopping from one island to the next. Maybe it took them generations to just find 3 or 4 islands. But the point is that if you'd said to them at the beginning, one day you're gonna populate over 1,000 islands in the Pacific Ocean, they would have gone, no, that's too much. It's too much. I can't relate to that. And if you say, look, see that little dot in the distance over there? I think maybe there's an island over there. Maybe we should just row to that. A micro step, an island hop. And so the way I relate to that in the book to working on your project is have these mini islands, these little micro steps. Okay, so how do you know that you're making progress? Because you know you've landed on that island. And you might be that you are 1,000 islands away when you look at all the separate steps you need to take to achieve your ultimate outcome. It might be you're only 10 islands away. Even 10 is daunting. But the next island, providing you've got it in a sequence, okay, I need to get to the next island, which is, I don't know, sketch out the first draft. And then the island after that is, okay, let's do the first page of the first draft. Let's do the first 250 words. And the island after that is, let's do another 250 words. And the island after that is, let's create a new section and give it chapter headings. Whatever works for best in your methodology. But the island hopping, micro deadlines, just a little bit, jumping hurdles. Another analogy I use, jumping hurdles, hurdle jumpers. To win the race, they might have a dozen hurdles to jump. All you need to worry about is the next hurdle.
Yeah. No, that's great. So let's get down to some actionable things. The last 10%, we're almost done. We're almost done. We have like all the pieces together. We might wait on one thing. Maybe we have a board of directors that needs to approve something, or maybe we have a boss who, is not reachable and won't sign off on a piece of content. Or maybe we have a designer who says, I just got to tweak this. I just got to tweak that. Or, we have a content manager who fusses about a specific color or a logo placement. How do we get that last? How do we get there? How is that last piece? How do we get past that last 10%? Because that's where a lot of us get stuck. Is there anything we can do there? Is there a decision 90% is good enough? That's what I would say. I'd be like, let's get it out. 90% is good enough. But that's not what a lot of people do. How do we get there? Is there anything?
Okay, so you're describing two things there. You're describing not having a clear outcome.
Okay.
Because a clear outcome will get you there.
Yeah.
And the answer and how, what do I mean by that is, you've got your content in front of you, you think it's only 90% there. And the question is, look at your outcome. Does this content actually fulfill the ultimate outcome? Mm-hmm. Or is the ultimate outcome not answered by this content? If the answer is the latter, you clearly need to do more. If the answer is, yeah, actually it does, that's fine. Mm-hmm. And I have a chapter in the book that talks about perfectionism, because that's the other thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, spookily enough, and I won't go into much detail other than to say that there is a myth out there that links procrastination and perfectionism. And it says if you're a perfectionist, you must be a procrastinator. Not so. The research actually doesn't prove that at all. The research proves the opposite. In fact, if you self-identify as a perfectionist, you're probably unlikely to be a procrastinator if it's a big problem, because do you know what perfectionists tend to do that procrastinators don't do? They get help. So they overcome it one way or another. They get help. But procrastinators don't. Procrastinators are like me. They go decades without actually referring to. I used to think of procrastination like we used to think about the common cold. Oh, I've got a cold. I've got a sniffle. Don't worry, I'll work through it. Oh, I'm procrastinating today. I'll do it tomorrow. The procrastinator's mantra. Never registered. Actually, this is a serious problem. Perfectionists do register. They get very annoyed by it. They genuinely like, I wish I didn't, and they seek help. So there's no, but you can have procrastinators who are perfectionists, obviously. Yeah,
I love this. This is so cool, because I definitely thought that was true. You're totally shattering a myth here that in my mind was true. I thought those two were related, and now that you're explaining it, it totally makes sense. Yeah, perfectionists get help.
And the simple cure for perfectionism when you get towards the end of a project is it good enough? Mm-hmm. just a different question. Not is it perfect? Is it good enough? And I talk about, I was trained to take massive action to make things move. I don't buy that. I would rather take massive imperfect action because I don't know if it's going to be perfect or not. I don't care.
Right.
What I do care is that I'm doing something. And actually, it doesn't even have to be massive. It can be quite small, a small baby step that might be imperfect. I might have to roll it back. I might have to put the content out there and get real feedback from the real world that says, yeah, that's not quite right. You go, okay, next time I will take that feedback and I will utilize it to make sure the next piece of content works better. But the reality is stay focused on your ultimate outcome. Does the content you've produced fulfill what that ultimate outcome is? And if you're not sure, then you won't care about your ultimate outcome in the first place. So there's a lesson there. Make sure that you start off with a good, clear, concise ultimate outcome. In my book, I call it your personal life vision for your own personal life. But for the purpose of producing content, it could be, what content do we want to produce by the end of the week, the month, the year?
Yeah.
That works just as well. And the other point is let go of the perfectionism and just ask yourself a different question, which is not, is it perfect, but is it good enough?
Yeah.
And if it's good enough, and in your mind, yeah, but we're putting imperfect content out there. Well, if the imperfect content is teaching someone how to fly a plane, and the bit that you haven't quite got right is landing the plane, you need to go back because your ultimate outcome is not crash the plane. But if it's just like, yeah, okay, so it's, it could do with tightening up a bit. It's got a couple of hundred words too many, whatever. Put it out there. Move on.
Yeah, because that's what we're almost at the end, but I want to talk about that feedback loop what you were talking about, which in marketing and content creation is so important. The feedback loop doesn't just come from your team about, what you're going to put out. The feedback loop comes from your customer who's reacting to your content, who, even if the content might be imperfect, which I love, which is where I am at 90%, it's better to post it. Done is better than perfect. I always say, let's get it out. Let's get some feedback. We can improve next time. If we're starting a new newsletter, we don't know exactly who's on that email list that might be a little bit stale, right? So we've got to put content out, see what we get back, see if they start talking to us, to have them tell us what they love or what their questions are, and then improve upon that. So I totally agree with you on that part but how about feedback on, within your team? I think that's one of the things that a lot of teams miss. Is that something that you talk about in your book, that I think after you do something, after you produce a piece of content, after you have a marketing campaign, maybe after you have 200 podcasts like you just did, having that feedback loop with your team to sit down and say, what worked, what didn't, what are we going to do different next time? I think that is a really important piece of content marketing that people forget. Is that something that you work on with your team? Because you have a team that helps you produce this podcast, right?
I think there's an underlying assumption in what you're saying, which I don't quite buy into, which is that the feedback that you get is accurate. It's just the feedback you get that day. Well, so if your customers, I in another lifetime, when I'm not doing this, I like writing. I run a local history group on Facebook, and I got 20,000 members in there, and I produce content. And because of my academic background, I try to be quite thorough with my content and make sure. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist about it. And then I get to the point, like, okay, that's good enough. And even when I put something out and I think I've got it exactly right, I get instant feedback. Oh, you've done this wrong. You've done that wrong. You spelt this wrong. You spelt that wrong. Right. And I look at it and I go, okay, did I make a fundamental mistake? Have I actually got a fact wrong? I'll change that for sure. But if it's just someone's opinion, okay, if I get one opinion, I don't really pay much attention to it, unless it's from an authority source, of course. But if I get 20 people saying the same thing, okay, now I've got to pay attention.
Right.
But even then, you and I are old enough, that is, we're more than 10 years old, I'm not going any further than that, to know that, what the kind of feedback you get today is very different to the kind of feedback you get 5 years ago, that you get 10 years ago.
It's
very
true.
different, extremely different. I mean, I was watching, I'll give you a good example. I was watching the new season of Scrubs, which I love.
Yeah.
I watched all of the originals, and they have a doctor in that who's incredibly politically incorrect. Perry, he's called, the character is called, and he just really goes for the jugular anytime a student does something daft. He calls them out on it, and he's very, very funny. And it was made, the last one the last one was made 15 years ago, and the showrunner was being interviewed, and they're saying, you know, what are you doing about Perry in this show? Because the actor has come back, but only as for a very small part. And he said, well, you know, we asked people in the medical profession, you know, the Perry type character who calls people out on their behavior and is sharp and stinging with it, how long would he be employed for in hospitals today? Oh, he'd be fired by the end of the day.
Right.
Right. But 15 years ago, 20 years ago, oh yeah, we all knew that. We all knew a Perry.
Yeah, no, it's true. Oh, you hit on something for sure, because you're right. I mean, the behaviors, as far as content on social media, we want any reaction, right? So,
Yes.
so I'm talking about, you know, posting something on LinkedIn or posting something on Instagram. We do want feedback, because even if the feedback is positive, negative, it gives us data. So a lot of
I would caution against getting caught in a feedback loop, because the loop is the thing there. It can be like an infinite feedback loop, and you could go mad.
No,
what you really need to be doing is thinking about, okay, what direction is that pushing me in? So therefore, what's the next content I need to produce? I'm not saying feedback is no good.
No, I hear you.
I definitely agree with you that it's vitally important that you have feedback.
Yeah.
My point is simply that don't get too hung up on it. Feedback within the team, though, when you're holding each other accountable, you know, have you noticed that you always do X, Y, Z when you're up against the deadline? Maybe you want to, you know, cut that out, or have you noticed that your favorite thing is having a donut to reward yourself? Have you thought about doing the opposite of what Robin does and actually not allowing yourself the donut until you've done your 250 words, not whilst you're doing them? Because you always don't end up only doing 10 words and having another donut. So
yeah,
that kind of feedback.
Yeah. Oh, Robin, this was a great conversation. I think we can go on, but we're at like 32 minutes. So I'm going to cut us off, but this was fun, and this was different. If you've made it all the way to the end at 32 minutes, whether you listened or you're here live, I know that we're quite a few people here live with us today. This was a great conversation. This should make you think about your team, about your content, about the actions you're taking, how to move forward, how to get past that procrastination or these roadblocks that you have. And fascinating. Robin, I need to get my hands on your book. Where can people get your book? Even in the US, because I have a lot of US listeners. Is it available on Amazon US?
It certainly is, but I want to go one better for you than that. I want to respect the fact that your people are busy. So I'm going to offer them a free video course, a 5-day productivity challenge, which they can find at skyrocketyourproductivitychallenge.com.
Okay.
And it's free, as I say, and it's only 10 minutes a day, a little video, which will help them get into this technology quickly. And then for those that want the book, yeah, absolutely, you can buy it on Amazon, but here's the book. It comes in printed form. It's a real book. It has real words in it, but you can also get that for free as a PDF. And if you want that, you can go to reallyusefultips.com. That's really, as in I really mean it, get it before I change my mind, because I'm going to soon. It's useful, as in it's packed full of information that you should find useful, and it's full of tips.
That's wonderful. And I will make sure that all of these things that Robin mentioned are going to be in the show notes, so you can grab all of these goodies and get started and stop procrastinating and get things done. Robin, what is the one social media channel you're active on if people want to engage with you or find out what you're doing? Is it Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram? Where are you most active?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Just look me up, Robin J. Emdon on LinkedIn, and do drop me a line. I don't bite, not much. I was brought up, not dragged up. And if you have any passion projects that are stalled and you need more help with your content, moving those forwards, that's the kind of thing, that's the bread and butter of my business. That's what I do.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Robin. And thank you, everybody else, for being here today, for watching. And those of you who listen to this as a podcast, we appreciate you coming back week after week. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Strategy Talks. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.